Yes, Sadie, my first day at St. Augustine was quite memorable. And you know, I worked hard at everything. Oh, I prayed harder than everybody else. I studied longer than everybody else. I confessed more sins than everybody else.
Wow.
I even had to make some of them up, you know.
Well, they get to be the best.
Yes. And then I did that more than any other of the freshman monks that were there, but I never felt as if I'd done enough to be right with God.
Well, that just must be very disturbing, Dr. Luther, because, you know, that must be where us Lutherans get that high sense of guilt and suffering, and you can't show any emotion, you know.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough. You know, there's a difference in guilt, you know,
Okay.
between Lutherans and Catholics.
What's that?
Well, you see, Catholics are guilty because of what they do.
Okay.
You know, that's why, you know, confession is so important.
Okay, yes.
We're guilty for who we are. We are always feeling unworthy.
Yes, it's a true thing.
Even when you are worthy, you feel unworthy.
It's not right to feel that.
So yeah, it was pretty disturbing, all right. It wasn't until years later, around 15, 14, that I was a priest. I was the Holy Reverend.
Okay.
And I was also a professor at Wittenberg, that I finally saw the light.
Someone changed the light bulb.
They did.
Excellent.
On the third floor. It was something.
Well, tell us about that.
I used to sneak off to the Black Tower at the university. I liked it up there because the cheerleaders would leave everybody alone, and they were,
You could finally get some alone time.
kind of get some alone time. So I was up there all by myself reading the Bible one day. It was just amazing. And I came across these verses in Romans, and it said, oh my gosh, it just makes me shiver. The righteous shall live by faith. Did you get that, Sadie?
Faith. What's that?
The righteous shall live by faith. Do you get it? By faith. In other words, it doesn't depend on what I do or what I say or whatever. It all depends on my faith in our Lord Jesus Christ. I would be in a right relation with God because of my faith.
Well, that's something.
Oh, and I don't understand how I didn't see it sooner. So I fell down on my knees and I prayed, and I was just so happy that I found this that I couldn't stand myself, that I wouldn't have to wash the professor's car anymore to, works righteousness.
That's lucky.
Yeah, and I didn't do a very good job anyway. But all I had to do was put my faith in Jesus, and when I was in a right relationship with him by faith, not by works, by faith,
Okay.
oh my gosh, it was so simple, and it took so long to figure that out. How could I have missed it for all these years?
Well, I just don't know. Something certainly we have learned from you tonight, indeed. The righteous shall live by faith. My goodness, it really does sound simple, doesn't it? Well, after this message from our sponsor, Dr. Luther will indulge us with more stories about indulgences. Stay tuned.
Hello, friends. Do you ever find yourself wondering how much more you need to do in order to make yourself right with God? Are you having trouble keeping track of the good works you're doing and calculating their value on heaven's scale? This is a problem that's common to many of us, and now the fine folks at Amazing Church Products have come up with the solution. Introducing the Good Works Calculator. With this handy little device, which easily fits into a pocket or a purse, you will be able to record and keep track of every good work you do, no matter how large or small it may be. Simply record the deed right here immediately after performing it, and the Good Works Calculator will store it in its memory bank and keep track of it from that moment on. Never again will you have to worry about losing the value of a good work done. It will be recorded here for eternity. And when you find yourself wondering how you're doing and where you stack up, just push the How You're Doing and Where You Stack Up button right here, and the Good Works Calculator will immediately display the results. It will show you how many good works you've logged in to date, how many good works you have left to accomplish, and it will show you the good works per hour ratio you have to meet in order to get into heaven. Nothing else could be easier. The Good Works Calculator from the fine folks at Amazing Church Products. Look for it in stores everywhere.
Welcome back. We are continuing our conversation with Dr. Martin Luther, the founder of Protestant Reformation, and a man who stands tall in the history of the second millennium. As always, we are thrilled to hear from our sponsors and hope that you, our fine viewers out there in TV land, will support them and help us to keep 6 minutes or so coming to you live each week during the Lenten season. Now let's get on with our show for tonight. Dr. Luther, I wanted to ask you about your dispute with the representative of the Church of Rome, Father John Pretzel. I understand that you and he had quite an argument going at one time.
That's Tetzel the Pretzel.
Oh, Tetzel.
I did not, that's what I called him. And he was a pretzel too. He was so twisted and crooked, he would turn the Bible into his own needs.
Well,
Not a good man.
no. And what are those needs, Dr. Luther? Like more butter and jello after services?
No, well, you see, in those days, they were building St. Peter's Cathedral down there in Rome, and Michelangelo was painting the ceiling. They ran out of money for paint.
Isn't that the one they laid on his back and did it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. He was trying they were trying to finish the church, and they needed more money, so they were sending representatives to all the outlying churches, and Tetzel the Pretzel came to Germany to sell indulgences in order to raise money that they needed for the building.
Well, what were these indulgences?
Oh, they were like a worthless piece of paper.
Oh.
Pay now, sin later. And he preached and convinced a lot of people that if they bought one of these indulgences, they could have their sins forgiven and have their time cut down in purgatory that they would have to spend, so they wouldn't be there so long after they died. You know, for a lot of people, buying indulgences started to take the place of good works that the church required.
Well, slow down here now. You're moving a little fast for some of us. Purgatory? What was that? Was that like having a bit of cake and coffee too?
Here's
Oh,
to you.
There, they
Thank
cheers.
you, Sadie. Purgatory was a place that you went after you died, or at least that's what Tetzel the Pretzel was teaching. The theory is that after you died, you had to go someplace for purgatory. It was kind of like a holding tank for naughty people.
Wow, were you there?
No.
Okay,
My elevator went straight up after I died.
good.
You know, just like when Jesus said unto the thief on the cross, "Today you'll be with me in paradise."
Yeah.
Blam. 1 minute I was here, next minute I was there. Pretty
Wow.
awesome. You know, you were either going to spend time in eternity in heaven or hell, and no one wanted to be in purgatory. So if you were to pay money, the more money you paid in indulgences, the better off you would be. The richer you were, you could say knock off 10 years in purgatory
Sure.
or 1,000.
Wow.
You know, we don't know how long we were going to be there. It was quite a scheme, and it was a slick way for them to get money for their building project.
Well, I was just thinking, I think that the members of our property committee are going to be very interested in this. You know, we could bring in those church basement ladies, but we got to build the basement first.
I think Lefse at $6 a piece would raise you better money.
Well, that is true.
Well, I didn't want them to get too interested in this whole thing it was kind of a pile of hooey. Can I say hooey in church?
I think so.
Okay. It was kind of a pile of hooey, and I told them so. And I told them that I threw quite a wrench in their works trying to teach that no place in the Bible does it talk about purgatory, nor does it talk about indulgences, nor does it say pay now, sin later. That, you know, they had to put their faith in Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ alone. And I got into so much trouble over this. You know, from our conversation just a little bit ago, you know, I told you, righteous shall live by faith.
Yes?
So if you're a good girl, that's wonderful. But a faithful girl's even better.
Oh, okay. Well, yes, when you say it like that, it sounds pretty simple. And, you know, I was just thinking here, if we could sell 1,000 of those 10-year indulgences and 100 of the 100-year indulgences, and then even just 10 of the 1,000-year ones, we could pay for new carpet and still have cash left over.
Sadie, are you listening to me at all? The whole thing was a hoax. Now, Don't you get it when I tell you that, well, let me tell you about a couple that I met back in Wittenberg.
This is pretty nice, isn't it, dear?
Oh, it sure is. It's a lovely evening. Now, you know, hon, you were really smart to have sold that technology stock you had in Gutenberg printing when it was at its highest price and buy these indulgences from the church instead. I think it's the smartest thing you've ever done. Besides marrying me, of course.
Of course.
Cheers.
Yes, these indulgences really were a good investment. Much better than holding stock in Gutenberg printing. I mean, where does he think that's going to lead anyway? He invented that press 50 years ago, and he's gone nowhere with it. Most of the world can't read anyway. So who does he think is going to buy all those books? The guy is a dreamer.
I couldn't agree more. What would people do with a book anyway? Once you read it, you might as well just throw it away.
Exactly.
But these indulgences, now these are the thing. They are worth their weight in gold.
Absolutely.
They've already saved me from all kinds of time and trouble. For example, the other day, Pastor Greg called me and he wanted me to serve on a committee.
Kidding?
And I said, hold your horses. I got me a get out of hell free card. I don't need to do any more good works to get into heaven.
Well, you know, I know what you mean, dear, because last Sunday, Pastor called me too. He wanted to know if I was interested in being a reader or an usher or church council president. And I told him the same thing. Don't have to do it. I said, I've got me an indulgent and it guarantees me a place in heaven whether I do any good works or not.
And what did he say about that?
Well, I said, yeah, that's what everybody's been telling me since that Tetzel the Pretzel guy has come to town and started selling those things. I don't think Pastor's too happy with that Tetzel guy being around here.
Well, I'm sure he isn't. After all, if everybody buys an indulgence, there won't be anybody left to do work around the church, will there?
Well, their problem, not mine. I'm just going to indulge myself with the good life here.
Yeah.
Oh, say, did you hear that? I made a joke.
Oh, yes, you did.
I'm going to indulge myself.
Yeah, that's a good one. Say, cheers.
Cheers!
Well, that's a real interesting story, Dr. Luther, but I don't really see what it has to do with what we're kind of talking about.
Well, wait a second there. It has everything to do with it. Sadie, indulgences they're not real, you see. They're a hoax. You can't buy a piece of paper that will get you guaranteed a place in heaven. Only God can do that. And the good news is that God has done it through what Jesus Christ has done for us on the cross. That is righteousness, living by faith.
Okay.
That's what matters, Sadie, and that's all that matters.
Well, then, what about this good works Bob and Donna were just talking about? Do we have to serve on a committee or be an usher to get in heaven?
Of course not. But don't tell Pastor Greg I said that, okay?
Oh, okay.
We get into heaven by God's grace, not by when we put our faith and trust in what Jesus did for us on the cross.
Okay, trust in God and not pretzel the tetzel, tetzel the pretzel.
Amen to that.
Okay, and then, but why should I do anything for anybody then?
Well, we are called to do good works, not in order to make ourselves more loved by God, or to get a worthy place in heaven.
Oh, okay.
You know, that's not the point. We do this because we're already loved, and we're taught to love our neighbors. And that's why we do this. We are not saved by good works. We're saved for good works.
Okay, I'm getting it now.
I hope so.
Yes, so our good works are really just a response to what God has already done for us. And this is the idea that you staked your life on and the entire Protestant Reformation.
Here I stand, I can do nothing else. Yes, it is, Sadie. When it comes to understanding what it means to say that the righteous will live by faith, I also come to understand the wrongness of selling indulgences. So I started preaching and teaching against that, and boy, I got in trouble. It was not well received in some circles, and I was thrown out of the church for it.
Really? They
Yep.
did not.
Thrown out of the church.
Wow. Well,
Excommunicated.
I don't even know what that word means, Dr. Lutheran. Well, I guess we're just going to have to talk about that subject next time.
Will you be here?
I think I might.
Okay.
So be sure to tune in next Wednesday, folks, for another edition of 6 Minutes or So. In the meantime, I'm Sadie Curing saying good night and God bless.